Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this mandala creation series. I'm not sure if there'll be a part 3 or not. I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow. Since the last video, I did decide to make this little mandala petal a little bit fuller, so I did kind of cheat and try to mimic the other one that I had just to make it a little bit fuller. So this is the one that I'm going to work with. And I also made a discovery that I can't believe I didn't think of. Uh, when you're shrinking an object, like I took the original, this blue one. Let me hide the original. I took this blue one that's on the bottom, and at first I decided, well, okay, I'm gonna copy and paste it, Control C, Control V, and then let me hide this other one. Okay, so here's the one I pasted, and I'll just make it a different color. And I thought, okay, I'm going to shrink it because I want it to shrink equally in all directions. So to do that, you want to use the offset, because the offset will shrink it. You can see this picture, it'll shrink it equally in all directions. But when I did it, shrink objects, say, and I'll click on here, 10 mils, that's the most you can go. And then I'll hit the check mark here. It kind of, these points right here came in pretty far, and it just didn't sit well with me the way it looked. And I thought, okay, I'll try it again to see what it looks like the second time. Offset shrink, because you can only go 10 millimeters at a time. So the 10 is there. I'll hit the check. And there it started to just look like a flower, you know. And then this up here, if I zoom in, you know, this is what we get a lot when we use the shrink or expand, because we're working with nodes. And so let me just click the main one and hit Control 1. So I was like, why is this not shrinking in exactly the same manner? And I realized I don't have to use the transform, offset, shrink, or expand. If I wanted to expand, I don't have to use that with this object, because this object is basically circular. It's 360 degrees. It's consistent all the way around. And with a circle or with a rectangle, okay, or with anything that's circular and is consistent all the way around, or that is rectangular in shape, you can just resize it. And you don't have to worry that when you go ahead and recenter it, you know, it's going to look different or whatever. You don't have to worry about that. So, and let me show you, whoops, I deleted the wrong one. Let me select this and delete it. So if I select the original and Control C, Control V, and just change the color again and take that new one, if I just grab the corner node and shrink it down, maybe like to there, and then center it, so hold Control Alt and C, it's beautiful. And I can shrink it down even more, say that much, Control Alt C, whoops, let me select it, Control Alt C, and it's still beautiful. Control C, Control V, change the color again. And then I'll take the corner node and even shrink it down even more, then center it. It's still just as beautiful. I might have to make this one a little darker to see it. So, and that's because it's circular in nature. For some reason, I thought in my head that I have to shrink it just like I shrink other irregular shapes. Because remember, if you have a shape that is not 360 degrees, or if it's not a perfect rectangle, or let me just show you, like for example, if I created something and I'll snap to grid and I'll put this, I'll click this on so I get a curve on my second, whoops, on my second node. So I'll click here, I'll snap to node. That's going to be a curve as soon as I click here. Okay, and maybe I'll put it there, and now I'll have a curve here. And okay, so it's somewhat of a teardrop. Okay, now hit enter. And this is just irregular. This shape is, you know, it's not circular, it's not square. I could even try and make it a little more interesting. Let me snap to grid only. Okay. I'm trying to make it a little bit interesting. Okay, that's a little bit more interesting. And with this shape, if I were to just, so if I brought that to center, Control Alt C, and let me hide these. I'll just group these. I'll hold it long to show them all, and now hold it long to hide them. So this one, if I were to make a copy of it, well, it's an outline. I'm going to go ahead and just convert it into a fill, just for the heck of it. If I copy and paste that, give it a different color, and if I went and shrunk that, and then Control Alt, whoops, wrong one. Oh, I'm so used to the one that I paste. I'm used to that one being the new color. Let me show you what I mean. When I took this and did Control C, Control V, I'm used to the one that's pasted being the one that's highlighted, but the one that's highlighted or selected is actually the original. So I always forget that. So I'll just click the second one that I pasted and make that orange. And then if I grab the corner and make that smaller and then Control Alt C, you can see that this one is not completely the same, as far as like this is really wide, this is really narrow, you know. And that's because this isn't a circular object. I actually like it, to be honest. It'd be kind of a cool object to save. I may just save it. But that's what I mean about this object. You can't really just resize it and expect it to have the same gap all the way around. So now let me hide this one. Let me choose this one, Control C, Control V, and I'll make this one, say, this color. Oh, I did it again. I'm just going to Control C. Control C, Control V. I'll select this one. I'll make it this color. And now, instead of just resizing it with the handle, I'll do the transform offset, shrink. It's probably too small to go 10. Maybe I'll try 5. Okay, and I'll hit the check mark. Oh, I guess I could have went 10. So let me shrink it again. Control C. But you could see it's consistent all the way around, which was my point. Let's see. So we'll shrink this 10 this time. Hit apply up here. And now you can see it's consistent all the way around. So the takeaway is if you hit, you know, and this looks great, it looks fine, it's beautiful, but if you're starting with an object like this that has these indentations, it might not look as pretty as you thought when you use the transform offset. And you know, thankfully it's a 360-degree object. It's circular, so we can just resize it and then you get the beauty back. Other circular type objects would be, say, I grab the fill tool. I'll click once, and for polygon, the 6-sided or the 8-sided, I'll choose the 6-sided. I'll hold Control and just draw out a hexagon, and I'll hit Enter. Control C or Control Alt C. And this object, this hexagon, everything about it is consistent, just like this blue mandala base. The sides are all the same length. The angles are all exactly the same. So this would be considered, in my mind, like a 360-degree consistent object. So whether I resize it with the corner handle or shrink it with the transform offset, it'll look the same. And I'll show you what I mean. If I copy paste, Control C, Control V, and I'll turn that one a different color. And I did it again. I'll just use the red one since I keep doing the same thing. I'll grab the corner handle and I'll bring it in and Control Alt C, and you'll see that I have the same distance all the way around. And if I went ahead and Control C, Control V, try to do it right this time. And I'll turn this one, see, I've got blue and red. Try that color. And this time I'll go to Transform, Offset, Shrink, Check. You can see it's consistent all the way around. I'll do it one more time. Shrink. So you can see no matter how I shrink it or resize it, it's consistent because I started with a consistent object. And even though our mandala doesn't have straight corners everywhere, every one of these petals are exactly the same all the way around. If we took a 5-sided shape like a pentagon, let me get rid of the hexagon here. So I'll do the same thing. I'll grab the fill tool, click once. I might have clicked twice. Let me escape. Click once, shape. So this time, if we chose a 5-sided object, you can see the difference right away. These two sides slant inward, and this angle down here is completely different than this angle up here. So right away, that's your tip off that when you resize this shape, you're not going to get the same distance all the way around. So you'd have to use the transform offset if that's what you want, if that's the effect you wanted. So let's just try it and see. So we'll hit polygon, and then I'll just click anywhere. Now I'm going to hold Control so that it's, at least the sides are the same. If you were to measure each of these sides, they would all be equal in length, but the angles aren't. Because with a 5-sided figure, you can't have that. So let's go ahead and center this just to make sure we're at least consistent with our centering. Control Alt C. And now we'll copy it, Control C, Control V. Click on that one. And make it green. And we'll go ahead and we'll do the resizing. So I'll hit Control Alt C to center it. And there you go. You can see these are very narrow, these are medium in thickness, and this one is a little bit thicker. I went even, you might be able to see it more the smaller I get. Control Alt C. That might be a little bit more obvious. But let's copy and paste it. Control C, Control V. And we'll make this one blue. And let's go ahead and hide this green one that was, irregular, just so we don't get confused. So we'll click on the blue one and we'll go to Transform, Offset, Shrink, 10, Check. And if I click outside, you can see this gap all the way around. It's exactly the same thickness when we use the transform tool. I'll do it one more time. shrink. And there you have it. Now bring this green one back. So you can kind of see the difference. Maybe I'll make the green red. It's very slight, but you can see that the red one is thicker down here and on the sides, the lower sides, than the blue. If I took this object here, and let's take it with all of its layers, because it does look kind of pretty. So this was that inconsistent object, right? And I created one of the shapes with the sizing tool and the other one with the transform tool. I even have the outline here. I'm going to go ahead and right click and group them all. If we took this object that's not circular, it's not a 360-degree object, it's not a rectangular object, if we took it and did auto repeat with it in a circle, thereby making it a 360-degree consistent object, then let's preview it. Then when we resize it, it'll resize perfectly around the edges, because now it'll be a 360-degree object. Granted, it's got all these layers in it. Since they're overlapping, I could do build shaping union. Okay, and I get a shape down here. And I'll click on the hole and delete it. I'll get rid of all of these, maybe except for the original. And there's this object. And we'll do Control-Alt-C. So what we've created now is a consistent object. So now we can just resize it. Control-C, Control-V. Resize that and center it. Control-C. Oops, and select it. And it's perfectly centered, and the gaps are exactly the same all the way around. They're always going to be bigger on the points, because that's the nature of a point, you know, even the letter A and so on, things like that. So, but it's consistent all the way around. So we started with an object that was not a 360 object, turned it into one, and now we can resize this any way we want. And you know, it's so interesting. So I don't know why I didn't think of that with the mandala, because you know, it's basically the same thing. You've got a consistent 360-degree object. So I can keep taking the original, Control-C, Control-V, and I can keep making beautiful objects, you know, beautiful replicas of it, just with the resizing handle and Control-Alt-C, and there you go. So now this is the basis of making your mesh mandala object. Is you don't necessarily need to have the same object repeated, because you want to have different objects, but sometimes you do want the same object just made smaller. For instance, here we could make this into a straight line mesh all the way around. Now we have to isolate each petal, and that's the next thing I'll show you. But well, actually, before I show you that, I want to show you the kind of the basis of making your mandala. So let's just say um, I have this circular object that I like to bring in. Let me just hide this teardrop. This is the object that I like to put in the center lately. And all it is it's a circle, a fill circle, and then I copied and pasted it and then converted it to a mesh. Is this a circle or is this one that I curved? It might be one that I curved. Let me see. No, so it's a complete circle. I do have some where it's a wavy circle. The edges are wavy. And that's real easy to make as well. So I could show you that too. But before I get to it, I just kind of want to show you the basis of making a mandala. So in a nutshell, what you want to do is you want to create all your objects as a fill first, and then start with the top object, which would be our circle here. I'll hide the mesh. And so this circle would be our top object. And it's also the smallest object. And that's the one you want to start with and turn it into a hole. Now, we kind of want to keep the fill on this mesh object. I'm thinking, I don't know. I may want to just make a background for right now that's a fill. And that'll be either representing our fabric, or it'll be actually a fill object that we want in the background. But just know that you can have separate fill objects behind every individual mesh object. So you can have different colored fills behind them. So for right now, I guess we'll just leave it as one fill object in the background. So I'm going to copy and paste the big one in the background. And I'll just turn it, I'll bring it to the top. And I'll turn it a neutral color, like a beige. I might even need to make it a lighter beige. If you double click on a color you don't really need, you can make colors here. This could be your color palette. And I've made several colors. Like this would probably be the beige I'd put in the background. But let's just say I wanted to make a maybe kind of like a red, but a lighter red. So I'll click on the red. And maybe this red is the one I don't really need because I already have reds over here. So I don't really need this one. So maybe I'll make this red into like, I don't know. I kind of been wanting to get a salmon color. Kind of. I don't know if that's salmon. I'll have to get the RGB for salmon. So let's say I wanted to put this and have it be part of my permanent palette here. So I would click on this and drag it to the red. And usually I click on this little one again and then hit apply. Sometimes I have to do it twice and I'm still haven't figured out why that is, but let's see. If I hit apply, okay, there it is up there. And so that's like a salmon color. Thought I wanted to get like a, I like that green. I'll make this one. Actually, I've already got a beige that I like here, so I'll just use this beige. So I clicked on this beige, and it stays here in my regular color palette, but now also it's going to be up in here when I hit apply. But this palette goes away, I've noticed, when you reopen. But but the but this palette here, if I double click, this palette here doesn't go away. Let me hit cancel. I haven't found a way to save this palette. If I right click here, I haven't really looked into it too much. Color, yeah. And it doesn't look like you can save a workspace, so a lot of times what you can do is just save a design and have that design be your color palette design. Like you could call it your color palette design, where you have all these colors here and then you have them. Well, you already, like I said, the other palette is permanent. It seems to be permanent because it's always there now for me. So at any rate, so I have this beige now, and I'll just make the base that color. So we'll just let that ride, but I'm gonna hide it, and I'll hit Control S. So at any rate, so then I'm gonna keep this fill here because obviously, like I was saying, you need a fill to cut your holes. There's two ways that you can cut a hole. Since this circle here is after this orange one, I can just go to convert, fill mesh, fill to opening. And if I do so, that becomes an opening, but look, I lost my fill. And I may want that to keep that fill because remember, I haven't turned it into a mesh yet. In fact, I'll delete this just so you know what I mean. Here, let me Control Z back. I'll just delete this mesh and pretend like it's, we're just working with fills. So again, if I click on this and I do convert fill to opening, I lost the fill. And I need that fill because I have to convert it to a mesh now. I have my, opening. Now I have to put a mesh in there. So if you're going to do it that way, by doing convert fill to opening, you want to copy this first. So that would be Control C, Control V, and then this one is the one that you want to have selected because this is the one that you can turn into a hole. And the reason you can turn it into a hole is because it's directly after the orange. So when you have that scenario, or when you create that scenario, you can go up to convert, fill mesh sfumato. So we're going to convert this fill, click fill to opening. So that fill gets converted to an opening in the previous object, this object. So this fill gets converted to an opening in this object. So click fill to opening, and there you go. So this one has the opening, and then this fill is still here for us to turn into a mesh later. I like to leave them all as fills until I get all my holes cut. So I would just leave this as a fill. The other way you could do it is Control Z, Control Z. Okay, you have the two objects. You could just do build shaping difference. When you do build shaping difference, you don't lose your original objects, they stay. So, but the thing with that is you have this extra object that you don't really need anymore because we're going to use it to we're going to use our hold object to cut a hole in the next object, in the green one. So, and I'll show you what I mean. If I select them both by holding Control and go to Build Shaping Difference, any of these now will keep your originals. So I go Difference. Okay, so that's great. It kept our original little one, which we need. We've got our hole, and you still have your two original objects. This one you're keeping because we're going to be turning it into a mesh. This one will be turning into a mesh. But this one, you think to yourself, well, what am I going to do? Do I need it? Well, yeah, it's kind of cool because you can just use it to cut your next hole. So you could use this one to cut the hole in the green one behind it. I mean, you could have used a copy of this one or, you know, what have you, but since this one's here, it saves you a step from having to make copies of things. So we'll go ahead then, and now from this step, you want to think to yourself, okay, do I want to do it by making a hole? Do I want to take this and slide it up, insert after, and just make a hole and lose this? And you're like, well, yeah, because I don't need it anymore. I have it down here. So now I'll just go to convert. Since it's after the green, we can go to convert, fill mesh, fill to opening. So we lost it, but that's okay. We don't need it anymore. So now I can actually move these into place. Let's take this and kind of move it up for a minute. Whoops. Because I'm going to do something with that. I've been thinking about it. I'm gonna just slide it up there. So now we have, you know, let's move this one down. Okay. So that's our back one. And then we have this one here. So at this point, you want to decide what you want to do with this blue one. And that's the one where I was saying that I kind of would like to turn it into a straight line mesh, but these petals have to be individual. You know what you see here, just the blue. So we have to cut that out. We have to make them individual because in order for the straight line mesh to rotate, each of these petals has to be individual. So, so between the green here and the blue, yeah, we want to cut a hole in the blue. So we do want to get this to be a nice thin strip here. And you do want to think to yourself, well, is that how thin I want it? Is that pretty enough? Is that enough showing? And so on. You know, you can zoom in and measure it. Remember, these aren't going to be satins. They're going to be stitches. So you can make this as wide as you want, this band. So that's what's nice about the mesh. And you can make the mesh really, really tight, you know, and If you want it to look like a satin, you can have this same color underneath it as a fill, or you could just have this underneath it or have nothing underneath it, just the fabric. So, but at any rate, you can measure this. So it's about 7 mils. 6 mils is a 1/4 inch. If my stitches are like 2 mils each, there'll be 3 stitches here in this part. So I think I'll just let it ride at that width. It does look pretty. It looks like a crown or something. It's very pretty. So I'll just select this and do Control-1 again to get back out. So there's so many ways to get these petals to be separated. The way that the last way that I did it, which I kind of liked, is to first cut it out. So take this and remember though, we want to keep this one, so we don't want to lose it. So we need to use this object to cut a hole in the blue object. But here's the thing. Does anybody know what I forgot to do? I should have made a copy of this one before I cut the hole in this green one. But that's okay because Embird makes it so easy. All I have to do is copy and paste this item, this object, Control-C, Control-V. I'm going to turn this one a different color right off the bat. Actually, that's fine that I turned this one the light blue because it's going to be right after the dark blue. So for this light blue one, all we have to do is come down here in the items window, click on the hole with our left mouse, and then right click and delete the hole. And so now we have a fill object. And remember, the other thing I could have done was done build shaping difference when I cut this hole. That would have left the original object. So I can go backwards and show that step again. So I can Control-Z. Let's see if I can. I'm not sure. I might have rearranged things though. Let's see if I can get back to this being solid. Okay, that was me rearranging. Still rearranging. I'm hitting Control-Z. Okay, so there it is, a solid object. And at this point, I could have done the same thing I did in the previous step, is held Control, selected the green, and I don't have to copy and paste because I'm going to do build shaping difference. So build shaping difference, and let's see, I got the green one down here. I have this one still, so this is an extra one now that I really don't need. It's the green one that I do want to keep. This green solid one I do want to keep so that I have it for the blue one. So I'll just click on this one now and delete it. And what I've noticed for me, I get confused when I have all of these objects, you know, the solids and the ones with the holes and everything. So sometimes for me, it is easier for me to just have the object after the one that I want to cut my hole, and then see what I have and what I need to do. Because as you noticed, if I did make a mistake and I'm missing an object to use as my scissor, you know, a full object with no hole in it, I can always copy and paste any of them with the hole and, you know, copy and paste this and just delete the hole like I did before, and that brings me back to a solid object. So sometimes I do prefer that method, so it's up to you. So now I can cut a hole in this blue object like I wanted. And I don't have to worry about losing the blue one because it's the last object. And also I have the yellow one above it, this cream yellow above it that I was going to use as my base. So, and I can always make an outline out of this one and then turn that outline into a fill. So I'm never at a loss for my shapes. I can always convert them. So at any rate, with this green one, you know, behind the blue, or I shouldn't say behind, it's after the blue on this board, okay? But on the screen and on, you know, in your hoop, or so to speak, it's before the blue. So just so you know. So in the object window, it's after the blue, so I can convert it to a hole. Convert, fill mesh, click, fill to opening. And so now the blue has its just this kind of thin band. And we'll work on that in a minute. So I am going to rearrange everything again. So I did want to put this up here. I was going to do something with that, but I'll decide if we have enough time. So let's rearrange this. So we have this one and then the green. So insert before, and then this one, insert before. So now they're all in the correct order. And I'm going to make this green a different color so that it's very clear what color it is. Okay. So now to get this one to have it be separate, you know, petals, I'm just going to concentrate on, say, this petal right here. I want to make it separate. So I'll go ahead and before I zoom in on it, I'm going to create an outline of this entire object. That's because for me, it's easier for me to work with outlines as far as when I'm slicing and cutting them and so on. So, and that's what I'm going to be doing is cutting this away from the rest of the gang. So with it selected, I'll go to convert, fill mesh, create outlines from fill. Now here's where the S comes in. We're going to have two outlines, the inner and the outer. So I've got my outlines there. And now I'm going to turn them a different color. Now if I should choose this one. Whoops. I guess we will. So I'm going to go into the first one. That's the outer. That's fine. I'll take the magnifier. You see my cursor turned into a plus sign. And I'll draw a box. I'll hit edit or control E. You see that it's starting up here. I'm going to have it start here. Click, right click, place start point here. Click, right click, split object. So now this object is split and I don't need the rest of it. So I'm going to click on the rest of it here and delete it. Go to this one and edit. Same thing, click, right click, place start point here, click, right click, split object, sorry. We'll get rid of this one. So now we have these two objects. And then this one though, if I go to edit, I guess when I split it, it reversed direction, which is fine. I wanted to start there, but let's see where this one is showing it's ending. They're both ending on the left. You can see the red dot. So this one, the outer one, I do want to reverse it. So they both reversed when I split them off. So while I'm in edit mode, I'm going to click Edge, Reverse Nodes Order. So now this one will start here and end here. Now I can, just from here, just grab another node instead of making an outline and have Snap to Node on. It looks like I already had it on. And I don't need this on. And I'll just snap this down there. So that's a good way to connect it. So then I'll start with this one, or I'll go to this one, hit edit, and it's ending here. I'll just click. What I should have done was made sure that it was straight, because I want this to be a straight line. So I'll click straight here because you could see it's got a curved node here. Click straight, and then I'll snap it to this node here. I'll go back to this one and make sure that I made it straight. Okay, it is straight because the curve is showing as a choice. So it's grayed out straight. That means it is straight, and you don't see a circle under it. Okay, so we'll check or enter. So now these two are connected, and you could see the scissor went away on the second one. And if I hold Control and click the second one, then go to Build, because we're going to build something from those two outlines. Outlines, combine outlines. And they combined into one object. So now that it's an outline, we can create a fill from it. So we'll go to Convert, Outline, Create Fill from Outline. So there's our fill. So we can keep this or not. We can always make an outline. Well, actually, I think I will keep it because yeah, I'm just going to keep it just in case. This fill, even when I turn it into a mesh, they're going to be separate. So I could always turn it back into an outline, but you never know. So I'm just going to keep it. And I'll turn it like maybe red. So maybe they're like in the same color family, what have you. And I'll just bring this to the top with the rest of the stuff that I'm not sure if I'm keeping or what. And I'll hide that. And so now we have this beautiful shape. And so with this shape now, we can go ahead and rotate it or what have you. Now, this is the time where you want this to stay exactly put where it is. And we know that it's in the center. Let me zoom out. It's my minus button. Whoops. Let me just hit this and Control 1. So we know that it's you know, this whole outer object was completely perfectly centered in the hoop. So we can actually use the transformation window, the rotate tool number, and go to 12. We should be okay. Oops. And we do want our rotation to be in the center, and it looks like it is. So I don't know if I put it there. Let me escape. I don't remember. Let me do that again. Okay. So let's go to transformation window. I must have put it there and just not thinking. I'm not sure. So we want our rotation to be in the center. And this should rotate perfectly around in exactly the position it's supposed to, because it was already made. This was already made, you know, originally in this position. So let's go and we want 12 of them. So we're going to click this 11 times. Okay, and then hit escape. And so I'm trying to think now, are these, I might have wanted to reverse the direction because when it rotated it this way. But my objects, you could see where this red dot is over here in the object window. It's ending here. So I think I'm going to redo that. So let me click the second one, hold shift, and click on this and edit. And let's zoom in so you could see. So you could see it's starting here, and it's kind of nice because it's a fill. So I could leave it starting on this side, but I want it to end on this side. So I'm going to click, because that's what you could do with fills. Right click, place endpoint here. So now, even when this gets duplicated over here, it's going to start here and end, to the left. So each one will be starting and ending in the right spot. So let's hit a check, and let's just scroll out again. I'll click this yellow one and do Control 1. We'll click on here and we'll do the rotate again. 12. Rotation center down here. And we'll hit this 11 times. Okay, and escape. And you see all the scissors are gone. Beautiful. So this is going to stitch out seamlessly with no ties, tie-offs, or anything. There'll be a tie-on at the beginning and a tie-off at the end, of course, way down here. And there's a color change or what have you. But in between, there won't be any. So these are ready. Now that I know that they're going to, work seamlessly, I don't really need these now because I'm going to turn this into a mesh. This one was my original, and I can make one outline around the entire object. That would be more to my liking. So I really don't need these individual ones anymore, because we have to convert this one to a mesh, and we'll do the transform rotate on the mesh, because that way our lines of our mesh will rotate the way they're supposed to as we go around. And that's one of the settings, I believe, under transform, flip rotate, apply rotation to fill stitches. I believe that also applies to the transformation window. And this setting is also in your options settings. Project switches, I believe. Apply rotation to stitches. So I believe that is, applicable to the mesh rotations. Only on the transformations, though. From my understanding, it doesn't work for the ripple, for the effect window in parameters. I don't know if they can connect the two. I've requested it, but I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. But the straight line meshes are in the transformation window, and I'll show you that in a minute. So at any rate, I'm going to click this and hold shift. I just did this just to make sure that everything is going to connect seamlessly. So I don't need the fills now. I thought I got them all. What did I do? Did I not select them all? Select this one, hold shift, and delete. So now I just have this one. I'm going to control S since I haven't saved. And so now I am going to go ahead and convert this to a mesh. So we'll do convert, fill mesh, fill to mesh. Now we'll go into the parameters for this. And we're going to tiles. And tiling that is the straight single line. It's the last one that I requested, and we got it. This is awesome. And I believe I liked a 50% scale on this. That means that these lines will be closer together. And then this is the window that you want for your angle. You want it to be 90 degrees. And this is the transformations window. So it's I should call it the transformations tab. So this tab, whatever you do in here, will follow your rotations. So if it's 90 here, when I when I do the transform rotate, this one will be, let's see, these are 30 degrees apart, so this will be at 120 automatically because we're applying rotation to fill stitches. And so that's all you need to do there. This is the effect tab. This is the one that I said is not connected. So if I tried to ripple this and think that the ripple is going to follow, the ripple will not follow. You have to manually assign the ripples for now, and I'll show you how to do that. But just know that the straight lines do follow the rotation. So this other tab, we'll have to set our stitch length. Since these are straight lines, I'm going to make both stitch lengths 2.2. And this is why I requested to have a higher minimum stitch length, because when we have straight line designs, I want everything to be the same stitch length, both your min and your max. And I've noticed that even without them doing this on the other straight line designs, when they were straight line designs, the stitch length was consistent. So, whenever it could be, I should say. It was the largest one. So we'll check that, and then this will be 2.2 as well. Enter, enter. So then it's just these three tabs that we set. And I'll hit apply. Okay, and that's nice. I like that spacing. I should have zoomed in a little. So let's hit done. And now what's showing behind is this. This was the original fill. So I can hide that and you can see that. So that's pretty. I like, whoops. I like that spacing. I think it's perfect. So Control 1. So now we can take and rotate this. And we'll use the transform tool like before, like we did with the fill. Transformation window, it's already on 12, so all we have to do is hit this and apply to duplicate 11 times. And hit escape. And there's no scissors again. Perfect. So this one was selected. Hold shift. And we'll just group those. And you'll see when I hit generate stitches, this will rotate correctly. Oh, it rippled. Did I have the ripple on? Let me see. Let me make sure. Let me make sure. Oh, I must have clicked that. Sometimes my pen does that. Sorry. That freaked me out. Okay. Let's hit apply again. Now we have none selected. There we go. So to see what's inside this group, it's better to ungroup it up at, at the top as opposed to looking down here, because sometimes if you click on something down here and then go to the parameters, you might be tempted to hit done instead of cancel, and which might mess up what Embird has put in the transformation tab. This one will say 90, but the next one's going to say 120. This one will say 150, and so on. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm just going to ungroup it up here. So like I said, this first one on the parameters, the transformation tab says 90 degrees. So that's 90, and so is this one down here. So I'm just going to hit cancel. There's 12 of these, and there's 6 apart. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if this is number 9, 9 plus 6 is 15. So 15 would be this one. So 9 and 6 are going to have the same angle. This one says negative 90, of course, because, it's incrementing by 30 degrees, and then as you get down here, it's negative 90, which is fine. So we'll just hit cancel on that one. And how do I know that they're every 30 degrees? Well, because there's 12 of these and there's 360 degrees in a circle. So 360 degrees divided by 12 petals would be 30. So 30-degree rotation each time. So this next one should be 30 more than this 90. So 90 plus 30 is 120. So this should be 120. And if we click on the parameters in the transformation tab, it's at 120. So that's the only thing that changes as you go around. And the one opposite, I'm going to hit cancel. The one opposite, 10 plus 6 is 16. So we'll hit the parameters. Didn't register. Let me hit cancel. I'll click it again and hit parameters. Sometimes that happens. And we'll go to the transformation tab and it says -60. Well, -60 is, you know, in the same line as 120. So -60, if this were 0 right here, and we came down -60, it's basically the same angle as if we were here and went this way to 120. So just keep that in mind. And as we go around, they're all going to be 30 more. So this next one should be at 150. And you can see it's at 150. And then 150 is like 30 up from 180. 180 and 0 are positionally kind of the same angle. So from 0, the one opposite this should be -30. If this is 30 up from 180, the one opposite will be 30 down from 0. So it'll be -30. So we'll cancel. And 11 plus 6 is 17. So let's just see, make sure. It's -30. So we'll cancel that. So when you use the transformation tab, everything rotates like it should. And like I said, I think that has to do with the flip rotate. If you have this check, apply rotation to fill stitches, even though this is a mesh. But the ripple, which is in the effect tab, is a little bit different. If I apply the ripple now to this one, and I go around and, you know, expect the other ones to fall in line like they are now, it won't. So watch for part 3 of the mandala video where I show you how to convert the straight line mesh to a ripple to get the ripple to rotate. You just have to do a couple of extra steps. So then this is pretty much done. So I'll click this one and hold shift and click down here, right click, group them. And I can move this up to the back, kind of like this one here I'm just using in case I need an outline later. So I'm just going to move this before the yellow here. And then I'll move this one after the yellow. So that one's done. I'll hit Control S. And I can convert all of these to mesh now that if I'm done with my cutting out of holes. I was going to kind of show you how I could use this one to make a flower and so have a totally different design in here. But I'm going to save that for a more complicated tutorial. So for right now, I'll just go back to these 3 because all the holes are cut. This one is the last one, so it doesn't have a hole in it. It's just the last one. So I'm going to hold shift and select all three of them and convert them all to mesh. Fill mesh, fill to mesh. So now I'll select this purple one, and I'll go into params. And this time, they're not separate petals, it's just a overall, basically a fill. So I'm going to go into tiles. I'm not going to give it number 35, even though I like 35. Or maybe this one. This one looks good when it's small. So, and I'm going to try a scale of 75 first, because it is a small area. And I don't have to worry, there's going to be no effect. The angle is set at 0. That's your default. And that's fine, because this is just going to be an overall mesh design. And I'll just hit apply. And incidentally, this you can scroll over so you can see the whole thing. That's why I make my hoops so big, so that I can scroll this over. Hopefully we'll be able to eventually make this whole window smaller in the future. Okay, so that looks nice at 75. I'm going to hit done. And you can see this flat down here, that that parameters window extends all the way out to like the middle of this tab that says flat. So when I scroll this over, I make sure that this edge is about halfway on the flat as well. So now I'll be able to see the whole design. So I'm going to do a little cleanup before I continue. I've decided that I don't need these files up here, and I'm not going to use this as an outline, so I'm just going to delete that. And this, I'm going to save that. I already think I copied and pasted it in a new file already. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I'll leave this in here. This was the outline. And I guess what I'll do is I'll turn both of these like a bright yellow. And that lets me know that I need to delete them in editor when I get to editor. So I'm going to hold control, them both selected. I'll go to more, and I used to have a brighter yellow, but I changed this, but that's okay. Well, I think that's the yellow that I'm using. Oh no, it isn't. I'm using this yellow for this one. I must be using this one up here. Okay, that's good. So, and I already resaved this as a different file name. Off camera, I did that. And to do that, you just go to Design, Save As. And you really want to be careful, because sometimes up here it has a name that you're not expecting. So look up at the top to see what name you have, and then if you wanted to change it, you'd put the new name here. And originally this was just Mand 4, and I added the word lesson after it. And then you'll click Save. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it, since I already did it. And so now I'm going to change the colors a little bit, because at this point I'm getting more of a feel for what I want to do, with this design. And usually with mandalas, if you stick to 3 colors that complement each other on a color wheel, if you have a color wheel, that would be helpful. But 3 colors is usually good. Now I'm not counting the base as one of my colors, but I'm going to go with, so I'll start with this, which are the straight line meshes. And I think I wanted those to be the red. So this red here, so I'll just drag it on. Whoops. Sometimes my pen sticks. I'll just drag that on and I click. So now they're the dark red. And then these, I think I want them to be a darker shade of this brown, of this gold. So I'll have it selected. And this is the darker gold. I know it doesn't look gold here. If I double click on it, whoops, let me cancel because I think I moved it up there. If I double click, you'll see that I already have it saved here. So I found the dark gold that I wanted and I dragged this over to this slot. So now this is permanent for me. So that's what this is. It's the darker gold. And so I'll drag that on back to inspector. And then this one, I'm going to pick up the red again. So I could just, slide this down and say set identical color, or I could have done it, with the more tab. And then this one, I'll use the bronze. And again, I could do it either way. And I'm going to have an outline, and I think I'll make the outline this dark, like, it's kind of like a darkish teal blue. So now this one is still a fill, and so is the one below it. We can actually select them both, and we can convert them both to a mesh because we don't need them as a fill anymore. And we can always go back to converting them to a fill if we need to. So I'll do convert, fill mesh sfumato, fill to mesh. Okay. And if the parameters on here are very similar to the parameters here, like say the stitch lengths are the same, I can just drag this down and say set identical parameters. But here's the thing, speaking of stitch length, I think I forgot to set my stitch length on this one. Because if you recall, the straight line is 2.2 and 2.2 min and max. So this one, I want it to be 1.5 and 2.2 because of the curves. I want that 1.5. So I'm going to click on params. And, there's my scale. But this first tab, see, I forgot to set my stitch lengths. So I'll click here, 1.5. And I'll just click the 2 backspace, 2.2. That's 11 stitches per inch, like on a long arm. That's why I use it. Because that's a common stitch length for long armors. So now I'll hit apply and I'll hit done. And Control S just to save it. So now, if you want to set these two at the same parameters, you could either group them or you can just do them one at a time. The thing is if you want to do them all together, you have to group these two. Otherwise, you do have to do them one at a time. So I'll just, since there's only 2 of these, I'll do it one at a time. And the reason I'm setting identical parameters is so that I don't have to set the stitch lengths again for these 2. Because they're both probably going to be curvy, so I'm going to want 1.5 and 2.2 on both of these. So I'll just drag this, set identical parameters, drag it there, set identical parameters, and I'll do Control S. So now I'll select this one, and I'll go into params, And you'll see that the first tab, my stitch lengths are set. And I am going to use a different mesh mode here. I'm going to go into the plant and show you how to use it. So click on plant. You have several options for the kind of plant you want. If you use, scroll up, if you use these first four, then that's the only choice you have to make. You don't have to click these two tabs. But if you choose flowers, leaves, or flowers and leaves, then you have to select these two tabs and make your choices of flowers and leaves. So out of these four, the one that I like is stem 2. It's really pretty. I'll just show it to you. And this is your cell size. It's kind of like your density. You know, your spacing is 8 mils. And then you can have it to be interior to where they're not cut off on the edges. Cropped is where they are cut off on the edges, and then you could have it overflowing as well. So that's kind of neat. So I'm just going to choose cropped just because of the nature of this design, or this whole entire design. We want everything to go right to the edge. And I'll just show you what it looks like. And you'll see why I like it. It's just pretty, even like that, and imagine with the fabric behind it. And of course you can go smaller in your cell size. It just, that extra little row of stitching here in the middle of each leaf, or these really aren't leaves, but they're branches, stems. But that just gives it a really nice look. And this design looks really good when it gets cut off because of the nature of the design. So the other one we're going to look at is, I'll do flowers and leaves and show you how when you choose flowers and leaves, then you have to go up to these two tabs. You have to go to both of them and choose which flowers and which leaves. So I'll keep it at cropped, and we'll click on flowers, and right away they put a pattern on the board for you. And if you don't want that pattern at all, you click this refresh and it goes away, and then you could start putting in patterns. Let me just X out. This here, the kind, that means, do you want to just choose from the library, meaning this glyphs from library, or do you want to choose, you know, flowers from your font, you know, from your font engine fonts, basically. So if you have like wingdings, you know, like down here, I could choose these. And I believe Embird tries to make them single run stitches, you know, center line stitches. I don't believe they make them satins, and I can't remember because I don't use this a lot. I'll leave it at 100% just so we can see. And then the text, now it's hard to know which text to choose. You know, is this A, B, C? Because you don't see your entire alphabet. So you may want to go into like editor, or where they show you, you know, the entire alphabet, or you can go into your C drive where your fonts are, and I think you can see them there. I can't recall. But going into editor is just as easy, and if you have certain ones you like, you can just print it out or print it onto a PDF so you can know which to choose. So right now I'll just choose, say, A and B, you know, as my font. But then I have to choose leaves as well, because I chose for options flowers and leaves. So for leaves, I may just, instead of going into my font engine, I'll just keep it at library. These are the gifts from the library. And this one is the first one that's already put on there. And I'll just refresh to get rid of it. And then I usually like to use this one and maybe this one. And then you could click this one again so that it's a pattern where you have more of the double one. And then you can X out of that. So now you're going to have this and 2 flowers. So, and your cell size is going to be 6 mils. This might be kind of small. Let's go back to the 8. In fact, I'm going to go to 10 because I'm not sure. And they're cropped. And you'll hit, and we have our stitch length is set. So we'll hit apply. Remember, apply keeps this window open. It just generates the stitches and keeps this window open so you can make changes if you don't like what you see. And I always hit apply anyways, because if you hit generate stitches, it's just like regular Studio, meaning it'll generate the stitches and it'll close this window at the same time, but it does seem to take longer. You know, this is really in depth, what's happening behind the scenes. So I always just hit apply first, and then I hit done to close the window if I am done. And you can see this is taking a long time because of the intricacy of what I chose. So you may notice throughout these videos that I edit them where I crop out how long it's really taking, because I don't want you to have to wait. So I'll probably do that for this one as soon as I'm done talking. Okay, so here's what it generated, and I don't really like it because it's not consistent, and that's because I used the font from the computer along with the leaves. I guess if I would have just used the font, it would have been more consistent. Did a good job of doing the center lines. Probably would have had to have used a bigger flower pattern. In other words, let me zoom back out. Click on this and Control 1 and move it over again. This one here, I'll show you what I mean. Something I forgot to touch on anyways, I'll show you. So on the flowers, the scale. So the scale is set at 100% by default, but if you click on it, I could make it up to 150. They probably need to be bigger. I'm not going to do it now because it does take a while to generate these fonts. And the leaves are at 100. The leaves are nice. You know, I like the leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to options. I'm just going to select the leaves. So it doesn't even matter what's in flowers. It's all grayed out anyways. I'll go to the leaves tab, and I'm just going to use the leaves from my library. I'll use them at a scale of 100. And I'll click on this. I'm just going to click refresh, just so you know it's blank slate. And I am going to use the double leaf, the single, and the double because I want more of the double. And then I'll just X out. So I got my scale. The cell size is 10. Okay, so it looks like I tried this and I had this set at 6 mils. Enter, enter. So the cell size is 6 mils. So that's like the density, you know, between the branches and between the leaves. And then if you click on the leaves themselves, they're set at 100% the size of the leaves by default, but I used 75%. And you just have to play with each one, and then I'll click apply. My stitch lengths were still the same, 1.5 and 2.2. I can't recall now. I might have changed it and upped it just a little bit to maybe 85. I'll try that. I don't remember them being that small. And it's much quicker to use just the glyphs from their library. That's a little better. So my scale is at 85 and my cell size is 6 mils. So I like that. And so I'll click done and it's cropped. I'll click done, Control S. And if I zoom in on the flowers, I'm in 3D. Whoops. Not clicking the right thing. Okay, I got my plus sign. So if I click my measuring tape, 1.68, that's good. I'm happy with that. Stitch length, it's a little over 1.5. That's great. So I'll click stop or escape. Click on this again in Control 1. So it's cute so far. It's looking like a hanky, instead of a mandala, but that's okay. We're just trying to do something basic. So now I'll click on the center one and I'll go into params. And for this one, I stuck with tiles, and this is what I usually like to use for the center. I like 37, the circles, the smaller circles. So 36 is the bigger circles, 37 is the smaller ones. And the scale, though, I use is 25%. It's quite small. And my stitch length is fine because I have curves. And what I do, since the circles look so good with a swirl, especially when it's just solid, there's no hole, it doesn't have to go around anything, it's just its own entity. It looks great with the swirl. And the swirl only uses intensity, and I just leave the default at 50%. The fisheye, the black hole, and the swirl use intensity. The ripple and the saw will use this group box count and range and angle. So it's grayed out now because I have swirl selected. So I'm at 25%. Everything's good. This doesn't matter because I'm swirling it. So I mean, I guess it could. I guess this could matter. Maybe if you didn't like the way it was generated, you could try a different angle. Maybe that's where it starts and so on. But we'll just go ahead and hit apply. And there it is. It's so pretty. And click done. So Control S. And now the only thing I need to do is add my outlines. So the only outline I have on my board here now is this one. And I am not sure if this outline had already my custom ESMs loaded into it. Let's just see. I clicked on params. Oh yeah, they're already loaded. So I loaded them in already. And sometimes I do that. I make sure that I open up a design that has them already. Then I don't have to bring them in again. But just in case you do, let's hit done. I'll show you how to load your outlines. Before I do that, though, I'm going to create the outlines. So you can only create an outline from a fill or a column, wherever we want an outline, we have to, either make copies of these and paste them because we don't want to lose the mesh. So we have to get a fill object. So let's start with, I guess we could start with this one up here because this was the one that I had saved because it's this band all in one. It's just a fill with a hole in it. If I bring it back, hold my mouse on it, you could see that's what it is. So it's just a fill and then it's got a huge hole cut out of it and it's a band. And that's perfect because I can make two outlines, the outer outline and the inner outline. So I'm just going to, from this, I don't have to copy paste it or anything because when you create an outline from something, you're creating another object and it doesn't touch this object, doesn't affect it, I should say. So you click on the fill and you go to convert. Now that's misleading, even though it says convert. When you go to fill mesh sfumato, so we're going to convert a fill, you have these words create sometimes. Okay, so that's confusing. It's like, well, I thought we're converting. Well, they put it all under the same heading. So the ones that don't have the word create in front of them, yes, you're going to lose your object. Like convert, fill mesh, or fill to opening, then that you're going to lose the fill. Fill to sfumato, you're going to lose the fill. It's going to become a sfumato. Fill to mesh, you're going to lose the fill. It's going to become a mesh. Create fill from opening, you're not going to lose the fill because you're creating a fill from the opening. So this is create outlines from fill. So we're just going to create new outlines. So we'll click there, and there's our two outlines. They come in at the same color, and I'm going to turn them this dark blue. And I'm actually going to, here's the choice you can have. You can have your outer one be a completely different stitch because maybe you want it to stick out. Or you can have them the same. Either way, we can connect them. So if I right click, if I left click to just select the second one, and then right click create connection, there we have a connection. We'll click on it just to see where it is. Well, it's not really where I want it to be up there. I'd rather it be down here where you can't see it. So I'm going to change where this outer one starts. I mean, where it ends. I want it to end down here. So let me have it selected. I'll go into edit. Okay, I'll get my magnifier and draw a box down here. So I'm going to click on that so it's red. Right click, place start point here. When it's an outline, especially a closed outline, your start and end point are going to be in the same spot. So it's going to start and it's going to end there. So that's good. I'll hit enter. But now see where what the connection looks like. The connection reassigns itself, which is great. And it reminds us that, oh yeah, we have to change this one's start point as well. So we'll click on the second one, edit, click, right click, place start point here. So the first one's going to start and end right here. The second one's going to start here. And now my connection jumped down there. If I click on the connection, it's down here. Connection. See how small the minimum stitch length and the max? I may want those to be bigger. I may want to convert it to an outline. I definitely don't think I need the minimum to be that small. So I'm going to bump it up to 1.5, the biggest. I'll just click there. And I'll make my maximum 2.2 since that's like what my outline stitches are. So that's good enough. Now, if I wanted them both to be 2.2, then I'd have to convert the connection to an outline. So, and that's easy. All you do is with it selected, you go to convert, connection manual, connection to outline, and now you click on the outline, click on the params, and you can make everything 2 point. This is my default, and Embird did save it. I had store as default, and I selected outlines a long time ago, and Embird is saving that for my outlines. So, so that's fine. So I'll just click apply. And now instead of it being a connection, it's an outline, but still there's no tie-ons or tie-offs. The scissors went away in between the two. And now I can give this, I can give these the same decorative stitch, these two outlines, or I can have them be different. So now I'll go and show you how you can load your ESMs. Even though mine are already loaded, I'll go into fragment editors. So gadgets, fragment editors. And if you want these all cleared out, you can, say click on one and I believe it's here, clear. So the blue dots and then clear. So that it's funny because it doesn't show up right away, and I think that's a bug. So if I click on here and clear, it's clear here, but when you click, it's still showing. And if I click here, the same thing, clear, okay, it's still showing. But if I hit done and then go back into gadgets, fragment editors, now these three are empty. So that's just something that, because this is still in beta, they just, and I did email them about that, so they know about it. So I'm sure it'll be fixed. So at any rate, if you did want to bring in an ESM, you'd click on an empty slot, you'd go to the blue dots, open sample, and you want your ESMs to be stored in a separate file, not in an Embird file. These are my special folders where I have my outlines and my motifs in a different folder, but I have my favorite outlines, and this is my path. So in the first slot, I like to use arrowhead 6. So it'll show here, but it's not showing there. And usually when this is all blank and you first do it, this slot will show, but this is the only one that does. So you just have to remember, like I said, if you come back into it, everything will show. So then for 2, I think I was using backstitch crooked, shows here, open, and then click on it. And then for 3, don't recall what I was putting in there. Backstitch hat thick. I'm not sure. So yeah, this looks like bike chain, and this looks like heartbeat. Heartbeat doesn't have a direction, it goes straight up and down. So a lot of times it's a good choice if you don't want to have a slanted outline. So when you have them all filled, you just click done, and then I'll just select this first one and I'll go into params, and now they all should be there. Well, they were there before, but I deleted them and So here they are. And I'm going to choose for the outer one, I'm going to choose backstitch crooked because then I'll show you about the mirror. And you don't have to worry about setting the stitch length because it's set when I made the ESM. So if you make your ESMs, you give it your stitch length min and max, but you can still change it. Just know that if you change it and then you generate the stitches again with just with forgetting the fact that you changed this, it's going to generate the stitches on the cell lengths that were actually set when I created the ESM. So that's why I have several versions of the same ESM, you know. So if you did want a different stitch length, then you can choose a different one. Now this one, I only have one version of it. So, but you can make more, you know. You could just go into gadget editors, change your min and max, and then resave it as a different file name. So, I'm just going to choose this and see which way these go. If they go to the outside, then I don't have to use the mirror. And this is your width that you could change as well. This is your up and down width. The cell lengths are your lengths this way. So I'll hit apply, and I know I'm zoomed in. So they are going to the outside, so that's good. So I didn't have to use the mirror. And then here's where it's going to, you know, this outline's going to come down to this next one. And I may just leave it like that, you know, instead of making this real dense here. I don't know, I have to see how it looks. So let me zoom out at least a little bit, just so we can get an idea. Now, oh, I forgot. This stitch doesn't look good because I'd have to go in and change this entire outline. I'd have to do convert to editable stitches. That makes it as if you're an editor, and I'd have to move this to be straight up and down on each of the points. You know, it just doesn't look right. So I don't feel like doing that, because then what you have to do is you want to save your original. You know, you would turn this, say, yellow, but you'd have your manual. I'll show you what I mean. Convert to editable stitches. Here's your manual stitches down here. And if I hide this one, okay, the manual, these are stitches. So when you hit edit, you're editing stitch points just as if you were an editor. So get the magnifier and zoom in, and then I would click on this and I would move it up, you know, and I'd have to do that for every one, just because this doesn't go real well with this. And so that's probably what I would do. And then hit check. And then I would turn the original one yellow, and that will remind me to delete it when I get into editor. So now if I click on this and generate stitches here, it looks better. I should have moved that in a little bit. And then I would take this one and move it up to the top and turn it yellow, because I don't like to get rid of my originals in Studio. But since they're yellow, I'll get rid of them in editor. And I'll save it as a JEP file in editor. So, but anyways, I don't feel like doing that. So I'm not even going to use backstitch crooked. So let's bring it back. So I'll probably use either arrowhead or maybe one of these. The other thing I could have done is had this backstitch crooked mirrored so that they don't stick out. If I mirror them and hit apply, you know, the problem goes away, but you still, I don't know. I just don't think that stitch is made for this design. You know, you could try them all. I should have zoomed out. Now remember, I have it mirrored. Let me zoom out a little. You can just hold this to zoom out. That's really not bad. And, you know, you could play around with the mirror and see. But again, it's an angled stitch. That looks good. That's really not bad. So that's back stitch thick. Bike chain. Now we're not mirrored at this juncture. That looks good. And you can mirror it. Okay, that looks good the way it's sticking up there. So I like that one. Bike chain big. And then heartbeat is the same everywhere. And I have several versions of this, narrow, wide. Okay, so that one is interesting, what it did there. Interesting. It's very symmetrical when it's not mirrored. Okay. So I don't know. I kind of liked this one. I can't remember now which way I had it. I think I had it that way. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to leave that one that way. And then let me just hold this and zoom out. Yeah, that looks good. And so for the inner ones, I'm going to use the arrowhead. So I'll click on params. And there's the arrowhead. Or I could use the arrowhead for everything. You know, it could be the same all the way around. Sometimes it looks better if they're all the same. Or I could use the bike chain for everything. Bike chain's kind of dense, so arrowhead's not bad. Now, granted, when we'd use the density map, this is going to look dark orange because, you know, you've already got a line of stitching under it, our contours. I forgot to show you that on the mesh. I'll show you that in a minute. There's so much to show you. But for right now, we'll just go with this. And I'll click on this and do Control 1 so we can get an idea of how it's looking. And I'll do the arrowhead for here and here. So really the only thing I need to do is select this one with the leaves and create a fill from the mesh. So there's no choice that says create fill from mesh. It just says mesh to fill. So you will lose it. So that's why you copy and paste it when you want a fill that you need just to make your outline. So Control C, Control V. And sometimes this happens. This is a picture that I had on my clipboard on my computer. And I did tell them about this. It's just a bug. So it pasted what was on my clipboard from like earlier, you know, like an hour ago. So to fix that, all you have to do is go to Image, Delete Image, and now you wonder, where did my design go? You have to just get your hoop back. So you go to Options, Settings, Hoop, and I believe I was using a custom hoop of about 800. Oops. Oh, shoot. Just so that I could scroll around. Okay, so there you go. And so now my hoop is big. I'm going to click on this and do Control 1, and there it is back. So back to my mesh. We're going to convert that to a fill now. Convert, fill, mesh to fill. And now we're going to select this and convert, fill, create outlines. So I got my 2 outlines. I don't need the fill anymore. Select it and hit delete. So for this one, I'm just going to click on the arrowhead and I'm going to drag it down to 1, set identical, and then just drag it down to the other, set identical. That's the easiest way. And they're going to have jumps because there's no way you can connect these 2 outlines. You'll be stitching through your design. So you're going to see scissors. So they're going to tie, this one's going to tie on, stitch it, tie off, jump to this one. This one will tie on, stitch it, and then tie off. So let's just select them and hold Control and generate. Should have hit Control S, and we're going to make them the blue color. Now, when they're both selected, you can just go up here and drag, and that'll make them both blue. Oh, this fill is showing. That's what we use to create our outline for this thin band. So now let's bring back this fabric or this. There you go. It's beautiful. And on this fill, I made the density loose. I'll show you, I'll go into parameters. I did that off camera. And 0.6, so the default is 0.4 for your density or spacing. And I just let it be fill number 1. For something real smooth, I like fill number 1 or fill number 6. Down here. They're both very smooth. And I left, this is your underlay. I left the underlay just to be automatic. So it's got all the underlays going on. And this is how far apart your underlays are. So that's just the default, and they were going in opposite directions like they're supposed to. My edge underlay is set at 50%, meaning it's close to the edge. On something like this though, with me having these outlines close to the edge, I might want to go into my overall settings for my edge underlay and change it to 100%. That means it's farther away from the edge, because I might have too much going on the edge. So I have to remember to do that. This is just standard. And my pull comp, I'll leave it at 0.1. If I see gaps on my sew out, I'll put it to 0.2. But when I did a sew sim on this fill, it stitched an outline all the way around first, which is great because that holds it. So that was nice. And then this is gradient if you want to use gradient. And these are your effects. But as far as my edge underlay, it's at 50%. Under overall, that's your shield that you see in regular studio. So here it's still a shield, and then these are the tabs, but these are the 2 here. This one is for your number of ties, and I have them both all set to 6 except for the manual stitches to 1, and I changed my stitch length to be smaller for my tie-ups. Instead of 1.2, I lowered it, made them smaller. It just makes more of them, and it makes a better pattern in my opinion, but I'm still playing around with that. So this is what I saved, and it does save your overall settings, just so you know. This one is your underlay, like I said. So I have it set for 50% for fill, let me just show you. Whatever you set for your edge underlay, your zigzag has to match because they interlock. So the edge underlay at 50% means the edge underlay is closer to the object edge. So I want mine to be farther away just because of my outlines going on. So I'm going to change this back to 100. I can make it even farther away, as you can see. So then I have to change my zigzag to 100. And I could play with that and just see where it's at. And if it's interfering with the outline, I will make it more like 125 or something. So that's good. And, you know, these are all the things, these I don't touch. I don't change these, the fill underlay, the lengths of the stitches. And I don't change this either. This is all in regular studio as well. These are the two tabs I changed, the tie-ups and the underlay. So I'm not going to save this. I'm not going to store as my default because this is just for this object. But I will hit apply. Let's go back to the fill now. So click on the fill, give it a minute. If you're worried about the spacing being too wide and that it might, you know, your fabric might show, you can turn your fabric color on and make your fabric color say black. I'll show you that. Options, settings. Can't remember if it, yeah, it's in rendering. So 3D mode, fabric color, I already set it to black. You could click on there and change it, but I don't have the fabric showing. So if I show the fabric now, you know, your fabric is in your hoop, and then click done. Now I'm in 3D. Now I can zoom in and see if I think that my density is too loose. And, you know, it doesn't look like it is, but, you know, you just have to play with that, like I said. So let's go into vector view and let's see where my edge underlay is showing. It might not be that easy to see it. Let's see. Yeah, because I have it's in such a light color, I'm going to hide this outer outline here. And I'm going to just turn this color dark for a minute. Maybe not dark blue, maybe I'll just turn it this dark red. Okay. So there you can kind of see my edge underlay. And I probably need to bring back my... Okay. So it's not interfering with this pattern at 100%, you know, on the edge underlay. I'm interjecting the video. I did go ahead and change this underlay on the yellow fill, the background fill. I turned it this dark red for right now so you could see it. But I did go and change it to 175 on the underlay instead of 100. That brought everything, even the zigzag. You see, this is what they're calling the zigzag, how it interlocks the edge underlay. It even brought the zigzag farther away from this outline. Now, I don't know if that's going to be too much. I'll have to see in a test sew because it's possible that it's not providing enough structure and there might be a gap, but I kind of don't think so, but I would have to see. So just so you know, if I click on params and, you know, instead of clicking fill, For this fill object, I'd click overall, and here at underlay, I have the fill both edge underlay and zigzag set at 175, and then I hit apply. I didn't save this as my default. Like I said, I didn't come up here and store as default for fills or all object types or anything like that. I just applied it to this one. And let me turn this yellow again, like it's supposed to be. This yellow. Okay. Back to the video. So you may want to make sure that you have your order of stitching the way you want it as well at this point. Let me go back to the yellow color. Okay. Control S. Control 1 to zoom out or zoom to selected. And so I have my fabric in 3D. I don't need that anymore. I'm just going to change it back. So I'll just uncheck that. So if I were going to stitch this out, like a lot of people like to stitch from the center out, and you know, you definitely have to stitch your base first if you are going to stitch your base. So that's a given. So that one's in the right spot. After that, I would stitch this red mesh outline, and that is what's coming next, because you don't want, you know, to start stitching other stuff and possibly move your borders. Your borders might be pulled in, or, you know. So I would get this outer edge done and stitched. So I would stitch the red, and then you really can't stitch any outlines yet because you have to stitch the mesh. So I would stitch the mesh, and then you think, well, I'm almost done. This isn't really going to pull it in because this is already done. So you might as well just stitch the red flowers, and you have to stitch this because of the outline. I mean, it's not going to really affect the rest of your design. So that's good. Then you'll just have your outline to stitch at the end. And so the outer one will stitch, and then it'll just have an outline stitch. Let's see what that looks like. That's what I was going to check. Click outside. Click it to get the plus sign. Okay, that looks good, because then these arrowheads stitch over it, and it's not going to be too terribly dense. Let's hit the density map. So see, you have some density in there, but what are you going to do, you know? I mean, this arrowhead itself is dense, but remember, there's stitching under it. Now, if you don't want the contours to stitch, these outer contours on your mesh, let me hit Control 1. If I go into, say, we'll just select this, not the red one, but this gray one, this one in here. If I go into parameters, sometimes if you don't stitch the contours, this first tab, include contours, is checked by default. Sometimes if you uncheck that, so then the outlines are not being stitched for the mesh, sometimes you see little connections inside your mesh, and it doesn't look as good. I don't know if that'll happen here. I could check and see, but I'll just hit apply and see just on that one. And then we can check it on the straight line mesh as well. I know this is a long video, but I just want to make sure I get everything covered. Imagine if I made this a more complicated mandala, how long this video would be. So let me hit done, and you could see it got less orange, you know, because the contours aren't stitched. Let's go. Okay, so that was not affected. So that's okay. We can leave that one as not having the contours. Let's try the red, this straight line mesh, and see. If we click on params, we go to the first tab and uncheck that. And I'm just going to hit done because if you recall, these all have different angles. So it's just like in regular studio, if you hit OK, you didn't generate any stitches, you just hit OK. I'm still playing around with that idea, but I'm just going to hit done. And now from here, with this selected, I'm going to hit generate. I don't know if that makes a difference. I haven't played around with it enough. I just thought if I hit generate from here, then maybe it'll keep all the angles. Okay, see all the little connections in there? Those are all little teeny tiny connections that it made because we're not stitching the contours. So we have to leave the contours on this one. So I'll control, instead of control Z, sometimes when you hit control Z, it controls these back two times. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to click on, or it's already selected, sorry. I'm just going to go into params. And include contours. I'll click done again. And then I'll hit generate from here. So these are the little things that, you know, I mean, it's in beta, so you just have to bear with it. And, you know, I'm finding out everything because I'm using this program a lot now. So that's good. So that one will have to stay. And then this one down here, I could see what happened. Let me hit Control S and I'll just try it. So it's on the first tab and I'll hit apply. Okay, that one didn't, I saw it change. Okay, it didn't affect it. So that one we can leave. So we have helped the density map a bit. Control S, click here, Control 1. Now there is one thing that I forgot to add to this, and this is optional. If you want to add another more mandala petals in between, that's pretty easy. So basically what you would do is I could just take the yellow, fill, and copy and paste it, Control C, Control V. I think what I'll do is I'll paste it twice, and I'll just use these two down here. I'll change one of the colors. Okay. And I'll take one of them. Maybe I'll make them both a different color so we get confused. And since each of these petals is 30 degrees apart, then we want to rotate the green one 15 degrees so that it's halfway, you know. So we'll click on it we'll go to transform, transformation window, rotate, angle, and doesn't matter which way we go. So we'll go 15 degrees. And you know, the rotation focus here, the rotation centers in the center. And we'll just click apply. So there it is. There's the green one, it rotated. I actually rotated the wrong one. The green one has to be on the bottom because the pink one is going to be our scissors. So that's okay. We'll just take the pink one and drag it, insert after. So now the pink one will cut the green one. Select them both. And so I held control and selected them both. And we'll do build, shaping, difference. Those green ones are the ones we want. And they're selected. So we'll just right click and group them right away while they're selected. But then these two extra pieces we don't need anymore. They served their purpose. So I'll hold control, select them both, and delete them. So now I have the green. We'll move it to the back. Instead of sliding it up, I can just right click anywhere. And remember, you want to right click up high so that your order, because remember, it's the order and all these other 3 or 4 items are out of the box. So right click up high and then order to back. So we want it to be the back. So which means it's way up at the top. Actually, now we have to slide it down. So we'll insert it before the yellow. Okay. And so now it's a fill. You can see it down here in the items window. And we can convert it to a mesh. So convert fill, click fill to mesh. And now it's a mesh. And we can take the, let's see, I'll take the red. That's not that one. Not that one. This one. The gold. So this right here. And I'm going to make the same parameters. So I'm going to hold it and slide up. Set identical parameters. And I'm also going to give it the same color. Slide it up. Set identical color. Now, I don't necessarily want it the same exact parameters as this, but I don't want to have to worry about changing my stitch lengths. So that's why I did that. So I'm going to click on it now, go into params, and I'm not going to have the outline be part of this beige. It's just going to be on its own. So I'll click on mesh over here because I was working on overall the last time I was in here. So it's showing, you know, the identical parameters of the other one. But I think what I'll do is I'll use the net, and I like this fractal, and the kind I like is number 6. I'll leave it at 6 mils. I don't check this because for some reason I like it better without checking smooth. And my stitch length stayed the same because it's the same identical parameters or same stitch length as this one. And I'm not going to do anything with that tab. So it's just this tab, and I'll hit apply. Okay, so that's definitely too big. So we're going to have to go down really small. I'm going to go to, say, 2 mils just to see. Because this is a very small piece. That looks nice. I could try 1.5. Goes down really small. I wouldn't want to go smaller than that. That's the the density of it. I like that. So we'll hit done. Okay. And it's still selected, so there. And I have my contour stitching. Now see, it doesn't have the yellow under it. That's not going to go well. So what I would have to do to get the yellow under it is recreate the yellow with this. So I'd probably just take the yellow again and Control C, Control V. I'm just going to paste it twice. I'm just going to union it with each other, so I'll rotate one of them. Transformation window, rotate it 15 degrees, apply, escape to get out of this tool, control, select them both, build, shaping, union. And so this will be my new yellow. So these two I don't need. I'll hold control. And then this one, I'll just slide it up. Usually if you hold it up there, it'll move everything out. I'll put this before the original one in before as my system, because then I know that's the one I'm keeping and the one after is the one I'm deleting. So, and we'll hit generate. So now I will have to move this after the yellow. I think what we'll do is we'll put it even after the red, because it really doesn't matter. We don't have the outline on yet. So now we have these two colors going. And I mean, technically, we could move this color up. It doesn't really have to stitch after the red because they don't overlap each other, and we're going to have an outline around them when we're all said and done. So it really doesn't matter. Oh, these are all have jumps. I have to connect all of these. So I completely forgot about that. So I would have to decide where I want the travel stitches to go between each of these. I'm not going to have a jump between each of them. I probably let them travel underneath here. So that would be another outline stitch. So it's a good thing I don't have the mesh or the outline stitching on this one. You know, the contour. So basically what I would have to do is ungroup. So you would just right click, create connection, and you'd say, okay, these aren't even, this one's not even ending in the right spot, this first one. So you'd have to come over here, edit, zoom in. I'd click here and place. Now this is like a fill or a mesh, so you can have your choice of your start and your end. And I'm actually going to have them start and end down here. So place start point here and then right click again, place end point here. And here's what you can do, to be honest. Let me hit the check. Technically, these are all in the same spot. I'm going to use my minus button to zoom out. So if I did want to save time, I can just rotate this one. It's in the center of the hoop. So for right now, I'm going to click on this, hold shift, click there. I'll delete these, click here, and I'm not going to use build auto repeat because they might not get in the right spot. I know if I rotate them, but this being the center, that they're going to go in exactly the right spot. If I use transformation window, number per revolution is 12. Put the rotation center in the center and apply to duplicate. So remember, I put my start and end point down here and then I rotate it. So these are all going in. So that's good. So I'll hit escape to get out of this. So now, you know, don't select that one, you select the second one, hold shift. I still have to arrange all those connections, but you know, it's not too terribly bad now. And so I'll just click on one and I'll click edit. I'll zoom in. And I'm going to snap to, I'll just snap to nodes. So snap to nodes is already checked because on these, there's probably only a node here in the center. So I'll click on this. This has to be a point. So click insert. So that gives me a point there. There's a square node here, if you recall. So with this selected, I hit insert. There it is. That was it there. And then this one should snap there. And that one is snapping there. Okay, so you're going to see a little bit of it here, but that's okay. So we'll click here and we'll snap. That one's down farther for some reason. There it is. And there you go. So then you'd have to hide your connections. So then you're like, well, geez, can't I just rotate those connections too? Yeah, we can do that. So let's just do that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to delete everything except for these two. So we've got this clicked. And we'll delete everything again. Let's just zoom out. So we have them both selected. Transformation window 12. Put this in the center. Apply to duplicate. Looks good. Let me zoom out. I think that's it. So we'll hit escape. So then it's all done. So that's good. See, I wasn't even thinking at first. There's just so much that this program can do. And group this. So we were going to move it up into place. Did I forget about one? Yeah, it looks like I did. Okay, so this one is there. Did I do this? Leave one out? And this one, oh yeah, I did. Okay, so I do that a lot. I forget about the one up here. Let me just move this. I'll move this up. Insert before. Otherwise, I'm going to get confused. Okay. So my connection is, the connection down here wanted to readjust itself. So this one is the last one. So it's not the first. Because I forgot it. I forgot about it when I did it. So insert after. Okay, so that connection just got right into line now. And then there's that one. Okay, now we're back in business. So there's no scissors in between anything. So we're good there. Hold shift, right click group 1. And so between this one, let's generate this. Okay. Between these two, if you recall, I said I could probably make a connection. Let's just see where it would be. I'll just right click on this one and create connection. So I saw it jump up there. So there it is. So this one, if I look down here, that's the last stitch. And the mesh is starting up there. So we'll just have the mesh start down here. That way we won't have any ties or anything, and we won't have to have this stitch going over our outline again. So we'll click on the mesh and we'll zoom in here. We'll click edit. And this is where we want the mesh to start. So we'll right click, place start point here. And so now my connection is right there. And then we don't have to worry about the outline because the outline stitch is way later. So let's click on this and do Control 1. So now these two are connected. This one and this one. So this and this mesh here. And then it'll jump to this button. And I mean, technically, if you felt like you wanted to stitch the red first, you probably could. It would probably be fine. You've got your base down. So we should move it up after the red. Okay. So now you have your yellow stitching first, your yellow base, then your red stripes, then your red flowers, and then it's going to come in and stitch this base, all of these, and then it's going to connect seamlessly to this mesh, and then it'll jump to the button, and then it'll do its outlines. It'll do these outlines seamlessly together, and then it'll do that inner outline, and then the outline around the button. Control S. And here, if you felt like maybe you didn't like this area of the mesh, maybe it, you know, the way this little flower is bumping in over here and this looks a little sparse, you can always go into the mesh. Let's see this one here. And you can slightly change things, like, let me click done so I could slide this over. I'll show you what I mean. So for one thing, you can change your cell size to say, click on it and just do 6.1. Sometimes that changes everything. The other thing you could try is go into your transformations tab, and you could change the angle. I mean, this is just an all over leaf design. So you could say, change it to 15 or not. You could just try one variable at a time just to see what made the difference. So you could try it just like this, 6.1, hit apply, and see. Sometimes this pattern, the way the branches are, is kind of set. And okay, it changed. It just changed. And it does look better, actually. It looks more sparse over here, though. So, you know, you could play with that. Let's go to 5.9 just to see what happens, because that'll make it tighter. Okay. That looks good too. That looks great. And just to see, we could change the angle to 15 and see what that does. I don't think it's going to really affect the overall design. So it just kind of moved it a little. I liked it better the other way. So those are things that you could mess with, and it'll, you know, they're so subtle that they don't really. So that looks nice. I like that. I like it. So that was at 5.9. So Control S. So there you go. It looks like a little doily with a little button in the middle. Or a little a coaster. Maybe, you know, your children go on a picnic, or for their lunch they can have it and put their chips on it, or what have you, and you can wash it and everything. Now the other thing I didn't do is I didn't resize this. I completely forgot. So when you resize it, you want everything to be showing. So you could either do Control A and then right click, show hide, show all, or do it the way I just did it. And then look down here, it's at 200. It's too big for my hoop. So I'd probably make this 190. So I'll go to transform, transformation window, size, aspect ratio checked, 190. And then hit apply, escape, and have to generate all over again. Okay, and I'm on vector view, going to 3D, and there you go. It doesn't look like the contours are stitching on this though. I thought I had it checked for the contours to stitch on that. So let me make sure. It doesn't look like they're stitched. Okay, this is the one here. Going to params. First tab. Yeah, it wasn't checked. Okay, so that one's done. And I would probably go in and check these other ones because if you recall on this mesh, I had the contours unchecked. So then you'll just take it into editor and you'll remember to delete these two yellow ones. And I'll just do a sew sim in editor. So I'll compile and put into editor or just click this icon here. And here's the progress bar. Okay, so I already had it in here before I put the new one on, so I already had it saved in here. So you could see I have my colors more combined on this second one. Here's the first one. When you have the magnifier on, you can't delete. You have to hit select and then delete or the trash can. So we'll right click on this color, we'll hover over it and right click and delete color and control S again. Go ahead and do a sew sim. I'll pause it. So I'll have it halt on floating stitches. And I'm going to have it go, let me zoom out. I'm going to have it stitch fast just for the sake of the video. Here's your jumps. Usually this signifies jumps. I've seen it signify connections, especially in Studio, so we'll play it. So you can see how my edge and my zigzag are in a little bit. They're not as close to the edge as normal. I put them at 175%. So that means there's a bigger gap here between the object edge and my underlay. So we'll hit play. That was the first. Okay, so it's stitched that. I wanted the red to be stitched first. Okay, so then it stitched that. And now it's going to do the gold. So if you recall, those two, both this and this mesh, stitched together seamlessly because I made that connection. Now it'll do the button. Okay, and now it'll do the outlines. So the first two stitched together seamlessly. It stopped. I'll hit play. That's stitched. And now, you know, it has to jump to this one. I'll hit play and it stitched this one. So I'm happy with that. I'll close. I forgot to hit the density map in Studio. Well, that looks great. That looks really good. Really good. And we know that it's heavy right here on this inner because we had to make those connections to these. If this wasn't a mesh, you wouldn't have to go along the outlines. You could go within the fill or the satin or whatever. But since it's mesh, we have to go along here, which is fine. It still looks great. And the density map was fine. And remember, if you want to get Studio, be sure to go to my website, WeQuilt Studio, and click on the bird. So when you go to my website, this bird here is what you click on to get the coupon code for Studio or anything that's over $100, even if you just want to buy Embird itself. This isn't my home page. This is my page where I sell ESMs and other tutorials if you wanted them. Here's the outline bundle. 60 versions of 19 ESMs. But also on the home page is the bird. So here's the bird. You click on it, you put your email in, and you'll get your coupon code. It'll show up right on the screen. And then this is YouTube instructions on how to use it, how to navigate the Embird site, and so on. And then if you do like my videos, feel free to buy me a coffee. I would really love that. So you would go to buymeacoffee.com/WeQuilt. And that would really help me out and surely appreciate it. And all the links for everything will be down in the description.